So Chris Paul was recently involved in a sign-in trade that included Patrick Beverley, Lou Williams, Sam Decker, and a 2018 first-round pick that will be sent to the Clippers for, of course, Chris Paul. And when I first saw this trade, I was like everyone else. I was shocked, but also very excited because I thought, well, there's some competition in the West. However, soon after, I started seeing articles questioning how these two ball-dominant players could work with one another. Both of these guys are top 10 in both touches and time of possession, as you might expect. And if you just watch the Rockets-Clippers games this season, you could see how much Chris and James were handling the basketball. They were the reasons that their teams were in the playoffs, or mid-tier in the playoffs. I think the Clippers probably would have been an 8th seed if it wasn't for Chris Paul, but that's another discussion. Let's start with the Clippers. As we've known for a long time, the Clippers experiment was not working with CP3, and it was pretty clear that he was on the way out. Lob City, while showing bright flashes and creating some crazy highlights, I have one in particular of, I'm a Pistons fan, so I have one in particular of Chris Paul lobbing it up to DeAndre Jordan and basically taking Brandon Knight's dignity and taking a shit on it.
Here comes Chris Paul. The lob. Touchdown! Oh, what a monster jam by DeAndre Jordan.
Well, anyways, I always felt like the Clippers were always going to be a mid-tier team in the West, but they always felt like they needed that one more piece, particularly at the small forward position. But due to some great GM work, great in quotations, by Doc Rivers, the Clippers were basically incapable of signing a big-time small forward like Paul George, Kevin Durant, or Gordon Hayward, or even a guy like, or even like mid-tier small forwards like 3-and-D guys. Like I can't name any off the top of my head that were in free agency, but guys like Wilson Chandler, like they wouldn't be able to get those guys because their cap was shot. They were paying guys like Austin Rivers and Jamal Crawford, which Jamal Crawford, I think he's very overrated because he is inefficient. He's not a good defender. He takes a lot of bad shots, and he is not a great playmaker. And of course, Austin Rivers. Until this season, he was probably top 5 for worst players in the NBA, right up there with Nick Young, JaVale McGee, Kendrick Perkins, and to be fair, JaVale McGee was actually really good this season for the Warriors in the small amount of minutes he played. But the Rockets. James Harden looked like Steve Nash on steroids last season, guys. The Rockets' offense was simple. It was basically just James Harden pick and rolls, James Harden isolation surrounded by a bunch of shooters, so that when Harden would get past his defender or would get his defender would get caught up with a pick, he could draw in a help defender and he'd just kick it out to his army of three-point shooters. And that got the Rockets 55 wins last season because that offense was so devastating. And their defense was actually pretty good last season. I think it was 15th, was it? Or around there. It was mid-tier, which is good enough when you have that good of an offense. But you could see in the playoffs that Harden, he ran out of gas. Like against the Spurs, he was getting locked up by Kawhi Leonard, and in the first few games I think he was pretty good, but I know in the last game he was basically no-show. Like he didn't even shoot the ball. As Stephen A would say, it was an imposter. It wasn't even James Harden. Another great Stephen A statement, but that's again discussion for another day. However, after this Western Conference, or what? No, it wasn't a Western Conference. I think it was the second round. Yeah, second round. After the second round, after their loss, I heard a lot of people saying that James Harden, he needs someone to take the ball handling duties off of him because he ran out of gas. He had no more gas left in the tank. And to me, that sentence sounded very familiar. Probably not to you, but to me that did. And you know who else it sounded very familiar to? The Houston Rockets front office back in 2014-15 after their Western Conference Finals loss to the Golden State Warriors. James Harden, it was him and Dwight Howard, and that was basically it was James Harden and Dwight Howard pick and rolls. That was the foundation of the offense back then. And that got them, I don't remember the wins, but I think they were around the same seed in the Western Conference, second or third. And the Rockets looked really good, but in the Western Conference Finals, they weren't beating the Warriors. They didn't have the shooting, they didn't have enough talent to beat the Warriors, enough defense. I mean, they were just completely outclassed by what I would say is a baby Warriors team. So you could see the Rockets, they needed someone. They needed someone to take the ball handling duties off of James Harden. Who did they look to? They looked to the Denver Nuggets small guard, 5'10", Ty Lawson, 5'10", 5'11", Ty Lawson. Now, if you didn't know, Ty Lawson actually used to be a pretty good player. He put up 15 points, nearly 10 assists the season before joining the Rockets. And he was basically the only reason the Nuggets even got to 30 wins. They probably would have been around 20 wins, 19, maybe even lower than that without him. I thought he was a pretty good player back in the day. That was a rebuilding Nuggets team, and he led them to not a good record, but he had basically his second best player was like Danilo Gallinari, so what did you expect from the guy? So, believing that he could help out James Harden immensely, the Rockets traded Kostas Papanikolaou, Pablo Prigioni, and a lottery-projected first-round pick, and also some other crap for Ty Lawson. Now, you could say, well, why is that so one-sided? Why none of those guys were even in the NBA. I looked them all up. None of them are even on a team anymore. So why would the Nuggets do that? Well, Ty Lawson had been getting he had been drinking while driving before joining the Rockets. He had been getting a few DUIs. So the Nuggets, that severely decreased his trade value. But I don't think that alcohol makes you a terrible basketball player unless you are completely an alcoholic. But 15 and 10, he was still balling. Like that's an all-star. Or probably not in today's league, but back then if he was on a good team, that's probably all-star caliber. So, Ty Lawson and James Harden were supposed to be a dynamic backcourt duo who could keep pressure on the defense at all times, as they wouldn't obviously play with each other all the time. But it turned out to be a disaster. James Harden and Ty Lawson both needed the ball, and Lawson was a terrible off-ball player, and Harden, while he wasn't awful, he wasn't great. And of course, if you have a choice between putting the ball in James Harden's hands or Ty Lawson's, you're going to put it in James Harden. So Lawson was asked to play off ball, and it did not go very well. It got so bad that the Rockets would eventually just buy out Ty Lawson. They didn't even trade him. They just bought him out, released him, and the Rockets barely squeaked in the 8th seed and got swept by the Warriors. Ty Lawson is nowhere near Chris Paul, you might say. And while I agree that Ty Lawson is not Chris Paul, they have very similar, or at least did have very similar play styles. Like, they both like to have the ball. So Ty Lawson, back in 2015, I have the stats right up here, he was 10th in time of possession and 20th in touches. James Harden and Chris Paul are both top 10 this season. And James Harden back then wasn't even in the top 30 for either category. So he wasn't even touching the ball as much as he is now. Like, he was in the entire offense back then. Now, Chris Paul is obviously better in every facet of the game than Ty Lawson. He's a better defender, better shooter, better playmaker, and so on. That's why I'm predicting that the Rockets will at least hit the wins mark of last season and probably get a few more, the 55 win mark. I'm going to guess 57, 58 wins. All I'm saying is that Chris Paul has had the ball in his hand the majority of the time, everywhere he's went. And James Harden has proven that he can't play with another ball handler in Ty Lawson. Now, he did play off ball once in his career, and that was in the Oklahoma City Thunder. But he has been giving the keys to the Rockets offense, and it's been so long since he hasn't played ball dominant that I don't think he's the off-ball player he was on OKC. And I know Chris Paul can play off-ball, but have we really seen him be a regular, consistent off-ball player? No, because he usually has the ball in his hand. So that's really my worry with the team, is can these guys work off of each other to a point where the team can elevate itself to an elite status, But anyway, thank you guys for watching. rate, comment, subscribe, and critique me in the comments. Please tell me what I did. Did I talk too fast? Did I stutter too much? Did I pronounce my S's too much? Which I think I did, but it's alright. Did I talk too loud, talk too quiet, just stuff like that. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.